खोजो 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 खोजो
Namaskar. It's a very hot afternoon, but I'm so glad to see that so many people are here going to listen to a very, very interesting conversation on India's ancient educational systems and what we can do to get it back today. We have a very, very interesting panel who all are experts in this field, and I myself am looking forward to this session because when I talk to my children's teachers, and my children are about 16 right now, and when I talk to the educators now, they keep talking about terms like holistic development of mind and body. They keep talking about value education. The terms that they use, like no child left behind, to each according to his or her ability, are all terms that were in practice if you study India's ancient education system. And Sahana has done a lot of work in it. So let me start the conversation by asking Sahana, why do you think India's ancient education system is still valid today? And why do we need to replicate it in today's scenario?
Thank you, Shefali. I hope I'm audible. Yeah, again, it's wonderful to be here and engage with a live audience. For very long, I have been talking to people on the screen. I'm first of all very happy that we have a session on traditional education in a mainstream event like this. So why do we need to recreate traditional education? It's because the answer is right in front of us. When we look at all the problems that the world is facing today, whether it is climate change, air pollution, water pollution, mountains of garbage being thrown and landfills becoming mountains literally, every kind of cancer crisis, all of this, when you look at it, it has come from if you go by what Einstein said, he said you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created the problem. So now when we look at all these problems that we are facing, global warming, pollution, everything, this has come from people who are educated in the modern system. So they looks like their education did not help them to live in sync with the environment, to respect nature. They have created all these problems. So I see a real reason for going back to the traditional system, because it was under this system that a lot of knowledge that we call knowledge today has come from that very system. So for thousands of years, our gurus and rishis gave us all that knowledge, because of which we have the various disciplines. So today you go to the history of any discipline, whether it's math or science, you can trace it back to the Indian gurus. So when we had that kind of education, none of these problems existed. There was no global warming, there was no trash piling up somewhere because we were recycling. We were not using plastics, use and throw kind of products. We were not doing any of that. So this is the reason why I say we need traditional education. And the other thing is that modern education is giving some skills. It makes you learn a bit of physics, chemistry, maths, and things like that. But end of the day, most of the people are still unemployable in India. We have a report saying that 80% of engineers are unemployable. So where has modern education helped in any way? And then in fact I have spoken to entrepreneurs and they tell me it's so hard when you interview so many students, none of them are good enough to be employed. So that's why I feel that traditional education has the answers to all these problems.
Thank you, Sahana. Now, when I listened to you, and you made a very important point saying that the modern education system basically gives you rote learning or book learning, but it does not make the students capable of dealing with real life situations by and large. Of course, there are honorable exceptions. See, we all know, if you go back in history, and I'm coming to you, Neeraj, with this question, that our education system basically underwent a body blow during the time of the Islamic invaders, yes, but the biggest systematic body blow to our way of thinking and to our way of education was dealt by the British when they forced English education on us, that too with the intent of creating clerks. Basically, people who are just educated to do the bidding of the white masters, but who do not have independent thinking, who cannot find solutions. And your book, Brainwashed Republic, deals largely with that. So I would like you to start with this and tell us about where we lost the plot. as a country in this shift to this system of education, and what can we do to go back?
Thank you, Shefali ji, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks to the entire team of ZEEL and Arth who have organized this wonderful festival. Coming to your question, जब आपने बोला कि जो मुसलमान आ रहे थे या इस्लामिक इन्वेडर्स थे, तो उन्होंने तो फिजिकल डैमेज किया कि इंस्टीट्यूशंस जला दिए, लेकिन उससे ज़्यादा मेथोडिकल, ज़्यादा सीरियस काम किया अंग्रेज़ों ने, या हम क्रिश्चियंस कहना चाहें तो वो भी कह सकते हैं. तो अगर जैसा आपने मुझे क्वेश्चन पूछा है कि अगर उसे डाइसेक्ट करने बैठेंगे तो मैकॉले के मिनट्स बाय एंड लार्ज लोगों ने पढ़े हुए हैं, लेकिन उसने किया क्या था, उसने एक डिमांड क्रिएट की. उससे पहले, या अगर उसके मिनट्स को भी आप एनालाइज करें तो उसकी डिस्कशन क्या थी कि जो भारत के लोग हैं वो मरे जा रहे हैं अंग्रेज़ी सीखने के लिए, और इसके लिए उसने कुछ अपनी तरफ से फैक्ट्स एंड फिगर्स प्रेजेंट किए कि उसका आर्गुमेंट बेसिकली ये था कि जो संस्कृत कॉलेज चल रहा है वहाँ से रेवेन्यू जनरेट नहीं हो रहा, लेकिन जो इंग्लिश कॉलेज चलाया गया कैलकाटा में, वहाँ पर एक साल में 200 रुपये का रेवेन्यू जनरेट हुआ. तो इस क्लेम से उसने कहा कि यहाँ पर लोग चाहते हैं उनको इंग्लिश एजुकेशन मिले, तो हम संस्कृत वाला सिस्टम ख़त्म करेंगे और इंग्लिश वाला इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे. और दूसरी चीज़ जो आपने और अभी सहाना जी ने भी बोली कि अनएम्प्लॉयबल लोग हैं, तो दूसरा काम जो वो कर रहा था कि हमें क्लर्क्स जनरेट करने हैं. और मुझे अभी भी याद है जब मैं कॉलेज में था तो हमारे किसी रिश्तेदार की एक सरकारी नौकरी लगी, तो मेरे पापा उसे कॉन्ग्रेचुलेट कर रहे थे कि आपका बेटा नौकर हो गया है. तो दिस वाज सो शॉकिंग टू मी एंड सो डिस्गस्टिंग टू मी कि कोई बोल रहा है नौकर लग गया और आप उसकी बधाई दे रहे हैं. तो ये मैकॉले ने जो किया, ये उसका एक जीता जाता एग्जाम्पल था. अब उसने डिमांड क्या क्रिएट की, उसने डिमांड क्रिएट कर दी ऐसे पेरेंट्स की जो क्या चाहते हैं कि हमारा बच्चा नौकर लगेगा. सिर्फ आजकल वो जो टर्मिनोलॉजी है वो चेंज हो जाती है कि उसमें बोल देते हैं इतना पैकेज मिलने वाला है, तो लेकिन अगर आप सिर्फ वो स्किन से उसका वर्बिएज हटा देते हैं तो बेसिक जो अप्रोच है वो वही है कि नौकरी, हमें पढ़ाई वो करनी है जिससे हमें कोई नौकरी मिलनी चाहिए. दिस इज़ व्हाट ही एक्चुअली क्रिएटेड. जबकि हमारा जो ट्रेडिशनल सिस्टम है जिसकी हम बात करते हैं वो क्या कर रहा था, उसमें आप एक ह्यूमन बीइंग को डेवलप करते थे, जैसे मानव मूल्यों की बात करते हैं कि हमने एक पूरा ह्यूमन बीइंग डेवलप कर दिया, लेकिन उसका मतलब ये कहीं नहीं था कि आप अदर वर्ल्डली हो जाते हैं. क्योंकि फिर से एक मेरा अपना एनेक्डोट है वैसे तो, कि हमारी हिंदी की टीचर थी, पता नहीं क्लास में क्या टॉपिक चल रहा था, लेकिन उन्होंने बोला कि ये तो बड़ा ना पलायनवादी विचारधारा है जो हिंदू धर्म की है. पलायनवादी है कि इस संसार में कुछ नहीं रखा, तो दैट इज़ व्हाट शी वाज ट्राइंग टू कन्वे टू अस. तो ये वर्ड पलायनवादी क्योंकि मेरे लिए नया था तो मुझे याद रह गया. लेकिन वाई इज़ इट रॉन्ग, वाई इज़ इट अ मिसफिट इज़ कि अभी जो एंगस मेडिसिन की रिसर्च आई है, जो कुछ लोगों ने पढ़ा भी है उसे, कि अगर हम पिछले 2000 साल का वर्ल्ड की हिस्ट्री को ट्रैक करते हैं, वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री की इकोनॉमिक्स को ट्रैक करते हैं, तो उसमें पहले 1200 वर्ष तक जो भारत की जीडीपी और जीडीपी पर कैपिटा वर्ल्ड में सबसे हाईएस्ट थी. उसके बाद सेकंड नंबर पे चाइना था दोनों पैरामीटर्स में. फिर 1200 तक जब ये मुसलमानों ने पैर जमाने यहाँ पर स्थापित कर लिए थे, तब जीडीपी गिरनी शुरू होती है, लेकिन जीडीपी पर कैपिटा फिर भी 1500-1600 तक नंबर 1 पे रहती है. ये मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूँ कि जब हम डिमांड एंड सप्लाई पे आते हैं तो उसके 2 कंपोनेंट्स होते हैं. जब हम गुरुकुल की बात करने बैठते हैं तो एक आर्गुमेंट आता है कि आजकल तो माँ बाप ही नहीं चाहते कि बच्चा गुरुकुल में जाए. तो पूछो क्यों नहीं चाहते? उनको लगता है कि गुरुकुल में जाएगा तो ये अदर वर्ल्ड ही हो जाएगा, ये इस संसार में तो ध्यान ही नहीं रखेगा, ये तो बस संन्यास ले लेगा और बुढ़ापे में हमारा ध्यान कौन रखेगा. ये उनकी एक परसेप्शन है. तो इसलिए हमें याद रखना है कि जिस समय हमारे गुरुकुल चल रहे थे उस समय हम संसार में सबसे बड़ी जीडीपी और जीडीपी पर कैपिटा के पावर हाउस थे. जब से हमने वो सिस्टम को तोड़ा है तब से हम पीछे गिरना शुरू हैं. इसका कहीं भी पलायनवाद से या अदर वर्ल्डलीनेस से लेना देना नहीं है. सेकेंडली, जब हम जॉब्स की बात करते हैं तो जॉब हमें कैसी चाहिए। आज हम क्या कर रहे हैं, अगर हम आईआईटी भी करके जाते हैं, आईआईएम करके जाते हैं, तो क्या हम टेक कूली बने हैं दुनिया में? क्योंकि जहाँ भी हम एक आर्गुमेंट तो देते हैं कि हमारा जो गूगल का सीईओ है वो ये है, जो इस कंपनी का सीईओ है वो ये है, लेकिन हम ये जानते हैं कि जो वहाँ पर सॉफ्टवेयर की एक कोडिंग एक लाइन भी लिखी जाती है, उसकी प्रोप्राइटरी ओनरशिप हमारे देश की नहीं है, वो किसी और की है, प्रोबेबली अमेरिकन की है। तो क्या हम इस तरह की जॉब चाहते हैं? और इवन अभी क्या हो रहा है, वी रिसेंटली आई केम टू नो के जहाँ पर लेडीज़ को जॉब दिया जा रहा है मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट्स में, वहाँ पर एक कन्वेयर बेल्ट है जिस पर प्रोडक्ट्स चल रहे हैं, उनको उनकी कुछ पैकेजिंग करनी है, कुछ इंस्पेक्शन करनी है, तो इसलिए कि वो लू ब्रेक पे ना जाए, उनको डायपर पहन के वहाँ खड़ा होना पड़ता है। कैन यू इमेजिन? डायपर पहन के जॉब पे खड़े होना है क्योंकि आप उस ब्रेक के लिए नहीं जा सकते। तो इसमें डिग्निटी कहाँ है, आप ये बताइए। ये मॉडर्न एजुकेशन सिस्टम है जो हमें, सॉरी जी,
दैट्स वेरी इनह्यूमन।
या तो दिस इज द सिस्टम विच वी आर राइट नाउ प्रोड्यूसिंग, जिस तरह के सिस्टम को हम फॉलो कर रहे हैं। दैट इज वाई द सिग्निफिकेंस कि जिसने हमें विश्वगुरु बनाया था वो सिस्टम हमने तब छोड़ा था, डिमांड एंड सप्लाई उल्टी क्रिएट की गई। अब हमें उसको रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा कि पेरेंट्स को समझ में आना चाहिए कि अगर बच्चा इस सिस्टम में जाता है तो वो सिर्फ एक पैसे कमाने की मशीन नहीं बनने वाला, उसमें मॉरल वैल्यूज़ होंगी, ह्यूमनिस्टिक वैल्यूज़ होंगी, वो आपका ध्यान रखने वाला है बड़ी आयु में जाने पर भी, प्लस वो उसके पास ऐसी स्किल्स होंगी, ऐसे स्किल सेट्स होंगे कि वो अर्न तो करेगा ही, लेकिन केवल अर्न नहीं करेगा, वो एक आर्य होगा, वो बेस्ट करेगा, जो अपनी फील्ड में करेगा वो बेस्ट करेगा। तो दैट इज़ आई थिंक, इसलिए मुझे लगता है कि हमें उस सिस्टम पे जाने की आवश्यकता है। और आई थिंक आई टेकन सम टाइम, तो क्यों करना है तो उस पर बाद में आ जाते हैं। हाँ। जी,
वही मेरा नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन था। मैं अंकुर जी से ये पूछना चाहती हूँ कि जहाँ तक मैंने स्टडी किया है, आप लोगों का तो अभ्यास इस विषय पे मेरे से ज़्यादा है, लेकिन जहाँ तक मैंने पढ़ा है, हमारे गुरुकुल की एक सबसे अहम वो जो बात थी वो ये थी कि वो जो स्टूडेंट्स थे, वो जो स्नातक थे उसके, वो अपने गुरु के साथ पढ़ते थे, गुरु से नहीं पढ़ते थे। वो उनके, क्योंकि गुरु भी निरंतर पढ़ते ही रहते थे, तो स्नातक भी गुरु के साथ पढ़ते थे, एक दूसरे के साथ पढ़ते थे। तो आजकल जो कोलैबोरेटिव लर्निंग, पीयर लर्निंग, जो वर्ड्स हमको दिए जाते हैं मॉडर्न एजुकेशन में, वो सारा तो हमारे सिस्टम में ऑलरेडी अंतर्भूत था। तो मेरा आपसे ये सवाल है कि अभी भी गुरुकुल एजुकेशन कहीं कहीं चल रहा है, कहीं कहीं लोग प्रयास कर रहे हैं गुरुकुल इस्टेब्लिश करने का या गुरुकुल शैली में शिक्षा देने का, लेकिन वो काफ़ी नहीं है। वो जब अगर हम भारत की पूरी स्टूडेंट्स पॉपुलेशन की बात करें तो बहुत कम लोग इस तरह की एजुकेशन से उनको बेनिफिट मिल रही है। मेरा आपसे ये सवाल है कि हम इसको फॉर्मल सिस्टम को और इस लर्निंग को इंटीग्रेट करने के लिए, एक एमालगमेशन करने के लिए हम क्या कर सकते हैं, और ऐसे प्रयास हो रहे हैं क्या? खासकर अभी जो न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी आ रही है, आपको लगता है क्या कि ऐसे प्रयास हो रहे हैं?
जी, थैंक यू शेफाली जी। तो सबसे पहले तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जो अब आ रही है आवाज़? हाँ जी। तो बेसिकली जो लेयर है कॉलोनियलिटी की, जो कि विच वाज द मेन प्रॉब्लम बिकॉज ऑफ विच दिस इंडियन ट्रेडिशनल इंडियन एजुकेशन suffered, okay? So the first thing that we can do to remove that layer within the formal education system is to introduce a Indian knowledge system module, okay? So as you were saying that we have to first think about solutions within the existing framework of formal education system, okay? As a first step, we can introduce IKS modules. For example, Indian knowledge system traditions modules have been developed by Professor Kapil Kapoor and Michel Denino. They have developed a series of textbooks called Knowledge, Traditions and Practices of India, okay? So these are meant for school children, okay? Similarly, other work has been done by Anadi Foundation in Tamil Nadu. They have come up with very beautiful textbooks on IKS for young kids. Then at the Center for Index Studies at Indus University in Ahmedabad, we have introduced IKS core curriculum in our university. So we are teaching undergraduate students one module in every semester, which is called IKS core curriculum. Now, this IKS, Indian Knowledge System, contains some basic lessons, around 30 lessons in every module on Indian knowledge traditions. Okay, so this is the first step that any institution can do it. Anybody can implement only one module. In fact, now, as you are mentioning, the National Education Policy mandates every institution to have at least one module of IKS. Okay, so we have some encouragement now from the National Education Policy. Okay. The second thing that we can do is we can at least introduce yoga, pranayam, mantra jap, and yagya in every institution. Okay, because ultimately the fundamentals of Indian education are based on exploration of inner consciousness, and without the development of the consciousness, we cannot understand Indian knowledge systems. And this has been stressed by all the original thinkers of India, whether it was by Ram Swarup or Sri Aurobindo. They stressed that the fundamentals of Indian education depend on on the consciousness of the student, not on the amount of information that he receives. So it doesn't matter if you are repeatedly learning lots and lots and lots of information, until your consciousness is pure to receive that, so there is no use of that. So that is why I think even within formal education system, these two things we can do very easily within our existing rules and regulations. Okay. Now, if you talk about the larger aspects, larger scale, on a large scale, you talked about Guru Shishya Parampara. We can also replicate that. In fact, I should say we can revive that. In fact, so many efforts have been made to do that. For example, in the 20th century, there were many nationalists and educational thinkers who came up with their own experiments and institutions. I'll give you one famous example. You must have heard about the Kala Kshetra in Chennai, right? It was started by Rukmini Devi. Yes. It was a beautiful, it still exists. It's a beautiful institution. And the idea was to create a space for the gurus to come and live there. And they were given all the freedom to interact with the students. So you had a space and you had infrastructure, you gave them freedom, and that is the kind of atmosphere we need, even in modern setup, to encourage a Guru Shishya Samvad. Because you see, as you were mentioning, the education of the Gurukul type did not happen only in fixed hours. It did not happen only in fixed places. It did not happen according to any fixed curriculum. You learned with the Guru all the time. That's why you lived with the Guru. You imbibed the inner workings of him. Okay, you observed his lifestyle, everything he did. So that is possible only if you are living with him 24 hours. And that was made possible in Kala Kshetra, as an example. So when we talk about reviving, we have with us some models that we can follow. Just to give one example, okay. Then there are many other things that we can do. There are, for example, education through...
I'll come to that in the next question. So Sahana, to come back to you, what Ankur said is very valid. These are the things that we can do to include the elements of our ancient education system in today's formal education system. But as you know, that we have an education system that's very diverse. So there are multiple layers. Even today, there are very traditional Veda Gurukulas which are operating the way they probably operated thousands of years ago. We have modern interpretations of Gurukulas where a lot of students come together and, as Ankur said, they live with the Guru all the time and they learn everything from doing rather than rote learning or book learning. And then we have the so-called formal education system, which is your ICSE, CBSE, your state board schools, which are basically continuing with the British mandated education system. Now, obviously, one size doesn't fit all approach. So what is the lowest common denominator that we can take from the Indian education system that will fit all this? And what do you think is the role of ourselves as society and to a deeper level of the government to encourage these traditional education gurukuls?
Thanks, Shefali. So first of all, I want to mention that, there are three kinds of traditional education system possible today. One is the Veda Pathshala. So Veda Pathshalas, which you mentioned, they have come down from thousands of years, and our gurus and rishis have taken so much trouble to chant it exactly as the way it should be chanted. And so we need to support the Veda Pathshalas. So there are those shakhas, a few shakhas are left, and most of them have been destroyed. But the ones which are left, they are sincerely chanting it every day. And they have a benefit for the whole world, right? So that needs to be supported by the government, by the society, everybody, because it has an implication for everybody. So Veda Pathshalas. And the second one would be the institutions that Ankur ji mentioned, the regular institutions, the mainstream, the government schools, all the schools, which can implement IKS modules and learn something, in a generic way about Indian knowledge systems. Okay, what was there in the yoga, what was there in Nyaya, those kind of things. Or there can be after school classes, there can be weekend classes. So I just came back from Chinmaya Vishwavidyapitha, where I was seeing how all the children are very rooted, even though they are following the regular mainstream courses, but they are also rooted because the teachers are rooted. And so they all have that, they have the core concepts clear, right? So that was amazing. And the third one, which I'm finding very interesting, when I wrote my book on India's educational heritage, my first book, it actually ended on a somber note because I said that we are destroyed, our old system is gone. But then when I set out and started visiting, traveling all over India, I came across so many beautiful Gurukulas which are still running excellently. And so they are small schools. They have like 40, 50 children. Like some of them are like devoted to, say, martial arts. So there's one which the main focus is martial arts, but then they study some other subjects also. Then Kala Kshetra, as you mentioned, some are centered on music and dance. So we have all these. But the one which I found most interesting was near Bangalore, which is called Vidya Kshetra. And there I was very impressed because Munit Dhimanji, the founder, he is focusing on how he can integrate modern subjects and the ancient learning techniques. So it's like a research in progress that I saw. And so, like for example, the first subject in the morning, everybody has to do Krishi. So whether it's the teachers or the students, first 1 hour in the morning, everybody has to do agriculture. So they're all taking care of plants. So that is an education in itself. Watching the plants grow, seeing what makes it die, putting fertilizer or not, what kind of fertilizer. That's the first hour of the day. Then one thing about the traditional education system is that you have to be rooted in the arts. So whether it's music or dance or some painting, anything, there has to be a rootedness in the arts because that is what makes you civilizationally rooted, right? So in Kala Kshetra, for example, they have 4 arts. They have dance, they have Hindustani classical, they have cloth making, and then they have some others. So a child has to do all the 4 arts in the beginning, because the child doesn't know what he or she likes to do eventually. So, and then every year the child will have to drop 1 art, and ultimately I think in the last year the child has to choose 1 art as the main one which he or she will practice lifelong. Now this is very important because if you're not rooted in the arts, you're not going to be good at anything, in my opinion. You can't be a scientist just doing science all the time. And in fact, if we look at the greatest scientists, they were good musicians, they had other things, other arts along with them. So arts is one thing I noticed. And then there is a way in which they're proceeding. They're looking at the Panchakosha technique of developing a child, right? So when from the age of 0 to 5 or 6, they are trying to, the child can only relate with the Annamaya Kosha, right? Because you can't give deep concepts at that young age. So then you take them for nature walks, show them things in nature, that kind of thing, tell them stories. Then so at with every few years, they work on a different level of Kosha. So then Manomaya Kosha comes, then Vijnanamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha. So they're looking at the Indian way of teaching, but they are integrating it with modern concepts. So for example, they make them watch the night sky. So watch the moon for the next 30 days and observe everything about the moon and come up with a list of 20 questions and then find the answers to them. So I saw all their notebooks, what they're doing there. Then ye ho gaya. Then other subjects, they have 250 experiments in that Gurukula, and they are not spoon feeding the kids. So they make them do the experiments and then they ask them, do you see a pattern here? So what kind of law are you deriving from this? And they will come up with the laws that we used to learn by rote. And frankly, these Gurukula kids, I mean, they can beat any student in the world. Their concepts are so clear. So they are learning about all the Indian concepts, the ashrama approach, the Triguna approach. They are learning all that, and then they are learning all these subjects. This was a fine example of integration that I saw, and I would like to see the other Gurukulas do this too. Because some of the Gurukulas that I visited, I noticed that in the day they are learning Vedic chanting and all that. But in the evening, they're going back to whatever CBSE and ICSE courses. I feel like that is not going to be very helpful. Now we have boards like Bharatiya Shikshan Board, then you have the Rishi Sandipani Board. So there are various other boards which are equivalent to CBSE and ICSE. The government gives the same primacy to them. So this option allows a lot of Gurukulas to develop their own curriculum and make these children really good at what they are. And actually, in my experience, the parents have been telling me to suggest a good Gurukula. You were saying that parents don't want to send their children to Gurukulas, but for me, the reaction has been that like I get dozens of emails every day saying that, Sahana ji, please, I want to send my child to a Gurukula. I don't want to send them to the modern system. Please recommend. So in fact, to give a good answer to them, I am traveling all around India for finding good Gurukulas.
You can answer that question. And my question was, while I understand your passion, you're talking about one Gurukula which is very impressive. My point is, how do you replicate this model across the board? Whereas, if a parent says that I want to send my child to a Gurukula, he should find a Gurukula which is within 50 kilometers from where he or she stays. Not send the child, 5 states away to that one Gurukula. That is the point. How do you make it scalable? How do you make it mass? And secondly, your question, and I want you to answer this, that how do you convince the regular parent? I'm not talking about the, the few people who are aware of the system and who know what it is about. I am saying the general parent who is considering a good school for the child. So for him, the obvious option is any good ICSE school, any good CBSE school, because they are nearby available. And the society says that you should send your child to school. If there is an option, assuming there is a viable option nearby, how do you convince that general parent who probably may not be learned enough to know that Gurukul system is bad? So how do you convince, how do you reach out to those parents? So that is something that Neeraj ji, maybe you can take.
Yeah. फर्स्टली जो सहाना जी ने बोला ना कि कुछ लोग मेल करते हैं, डेफिनेटली करते हैं. तो जो पैटर्न मैंने देखा कि जो बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ लिख गए और जनरली जो वेस्ट में गए, जिनको कोई कमी नहीं थी पैसे की, कोई कमी नहीं थी प्रोफेशनल सक्सेस की, उन्हें समझ में आता है कि यार ये सब कुछ कितना खोखला है, मैं ये चीज़ अपने बच्चे को नहीं देना चाहता. वो उनमें तड़प होती है जो फिर आते हैं कि सहाना जी आप बताइए कि हम कहाँ बच्चे को गुरुकुल में डालें.
Exactly, that is my point.
लेकिन जो आम पेरेंट्स हैं अभी भी मैक्सिमम वो वही हैं, वो दे आर इन अ रट कि हमने बच्चे को एक फैक्ट्री प्रोडक्ट बना के निकाल देना है ताकि वो इतनी कमाई करेगा, फिर इतनी उम्र में शादी करेगा, फिर ये SUV खरीदेगा, फिर एक फ्लैट खरीदेगा, वर्ल्ड टूर पे चला जाएगा. वो एक टेम्पलेट बना हुआ है. अब इसमें क्वेश्चन आता है कि हम इनको रेप्लिकेट कैसे कर सकते हैं. इसमें दो चीज़ें हैं. पहला ये कि अगर हम एक ही सिस्टम को रेप्लिकेट करेंगे तो वो शायद एक आइडियल गुरुकुल सिस्टम नहीं है, क्योंकि वहाँ पर हमेशा लोकल फ्लेवर की बात की जाती है कि सब जगह की अपनी पेक्युलरिटीज़ हैं, उनको यूज़ किया जाए. लेकिन आपके क्वेश्चन का क्रक्स बिल्कुल ठीक है कि हाउ डू वी डू इट एट अ लार्ज स्केल. अब अभी तक हम जिन गुरुकुलों की बात कर रहे हैं वो कोई एक लीनिएज के हैं जो बहुत डेडिकेटेड हैं, वो करते रहे, या जैसा मैंने बोला कि अमेरिका में गए, वहाँ पर उन्होंने देखा कि क्या नॉनसेंस चल रही है, वो तंग होकर सब छोड़ के आए, उन्होंने अपना गुरुकुल शुरू कर लिया. ये इंडिविजुअल एफर्ट्स चल रही हैं. जो एक जिस तरह की आप बात कर रही हैं वैसा एक ट्राई कर रहे थे जो स्वामी रामदेव हैं, उन्होंने एक गुरुकुल बनाया हरिद्वार में, और फिर वो चाहते थे कि मैं कम से कम हर स्टेट में एक खोल सकूं इनिशियली. तो उन्होंने प्लान किया कि 26 गुरुकुल और खोलूँगा. लेकिन उसमें सबसे पहला उनके लिए जो सबसे मेजर स्टम्बलिंग ब्लॉक है वो क्या है. अभी अंकुर जी ने बोला कि बच्चे गुरु के साथ रहते थे तो उनको इम्बाइब करते थे, उनसे सीखते थे, इसलिए हम उनको आचार्य कहते थे कि आचरण से सीखते हैं वो. तो उन्होंने जब ट्राई की स्वामी रामदेव ने इसे रेप्लिकेट करने की, तो उनकी पहली समस्या थी कि उनको उस कैलिबर के, उस डेडिकेशन के वैसे आचार्य ही नहीं मिलते. तो ये फिर वही क्लासिक वो चिकन एंड एग वाली उस सिचुएशन आ जाती है तो एक तो ये प्रॉब्लम है इसमें, लेकिन ये प्रॉब्लम सॉर्ट आउट कैसे हो सकती है, क्योंकि अब स्वामी रामदेव इज़ अ वेरी सक्सेसफुल एंटरप्रेन्योर, उन्होंने काफ़ी एक सिस्टम बना लिया जिसमें वो उनको उतनी शायद पैसे की प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन ऐसे और लोग नहीं हो सकते। ये काम स्टेट के करने का है। पहले जब गुरुकुल की बात करते हैं तो वहाँ पर भी जो राजा था वो भूमि का अनुदान देता था कि आप अगर इसको चला रहे हैं तो इतने गांव का जो कर है वो गुरुकुल को मिलेगा और उससे वो चलेगा, क्योंकि बिना कर के, बिना धन के तो चला नहीं सकते। आज जो स्टेट है वो इंटरफेयर तो करती है, वो करिकुलम भी बनाती है, वो उसे प्रोपेगेंडा का टूल की तरह यूज़ करती है, लेकिन अगर स्टेट समाज के भले की बात करती है, सोशल वेलफेयर की बात करना चाहते हैं, तो ये स्टेट की ड्यूटी बनती है कि जो यहाँ पे हम डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं इस तरह स्टेट को करने की आवश्यकता है कि ये जो सिस्टम था जिसने ना सिर्फ हमें एक फाइनेंशियल सुपर पावर बनाया था बल्कि सोशल सुपर पावर बनाया था, साइकोलॉजिकल सुपर पावर बनाया था, जिसने हमें हर एस्पेक्ट में सुपर पावर बना दिया था, अगर हम उसकी एस्पिरेशंस तो रखते हैं, आज की गवर्नमेंट उसकी एस्पिरेशंस रखती है और फॉर्चुनेटली उसकी बात भी करते हैं, तो अगर उसे रियल लाइफ में ट्रांसलेट करना है तो स्टेट को अपनी माइट इसमें डालनी पड़ेगी कि ये एक सक्सेसफुल मॉडल हो सकता है। एक नहीं हो सकता, वो हो सकता है 6 हो सकता है 10 हो, प्रोटोटाइप्स बनेंगे और फिर उनको इम्प्लीमेंट करने की आवश्यकता पड़ेगी। सिर्फ उसमें जो कैविएट है मुझे लगता है वो क्या होनी चाहिए कि इसके लिए पॉलिटिकल विल पावर चाहिए, प्लस एक थोड़ी सी बोल्डनेस की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि कई बार क्या करते हैं हम, वी डोंट एड्रेस द एलिफेंट्स इन द रूम। अब जब हम ये डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं तो हम इसलिए कर रहे हैं कि एक सिस्टम था जिसे वाइप आउट किया गया, ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ 1000 ईयर्स किया गया, तो हमें ये पहचानना है कि वो रामधारी सिंह दिनकर की एक पोएम थी जिसमें वो बताते हैं कि ऋषि को भी तभी तप प्राप्त होता है जब धनुर्धर राम उसके पीछे खड़े रहते हैं। तो असुर तब भी थे, असुर आज भी हैं। ऐसी 3 आइडियोलॉजीज़ हैं जो नहीं चाहती कि इस तरह का सिस्टम यहाँ पर पनपे, इस्लामिक, क्रिश्चियन और लेफ्टिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी। तो जब तक हम उन्हें भी इंटीग्रेट नहीं कर लेते अपने सिस्टम में, हमें पहले तो ये आइडेंटिफाई तो हमने कर लिया, एक्नॉलेज करना है कि दीज आइडियोलॉजीज आर अ प्रॉब्लम, इंडिविजुअल्स प्रॉब्लम नहीं होते, कि इन आइडियोलॉजीज़ के साथ प्लूरैलिटी की, इंक्लूसिवनेस की कंपेटेबिलिटी नहीं है और ये फिर से उस गुरुकुल सिस्टम को डिस्ट्रॉय करने की कोशिश कर सकते हैं। इसलिए स्टेट के 2 काम होंगे, फर्स्टली टू सेट अप दैट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर जो इस तरह की स्टडीज़ को प्रमोट करेगा, सेकेंडली टू इंश्योर कि इनको सैबोटाज ना किया जा सके, विच इज़ बीइंग डन बाय दोज मोनोथीस्टिक या मोनोपोलिस्टिक कल्चर्स। तो अगर हम इन 2 का ध्यान रख सकते हैं, प्रोबेबली वील बी एबल टू रेप्लिकेट इट।
थैंक यू सो मच। अंकुर जी, अभी आपने बात की कि टू इंटीग्रेट the values from India's ancient educational system into the formal system, 2 things, like the lowest denominator things that we can do is to include Indian knowledge system modules and to introduce yoga. I just remembered I was watching a video by Sadhguru when somebody asked him, but why are they forcing yoga on the students of general schools? So Sadhguru says, do you ask this question that why are they forcing trigonometry on the students or physics or chemistry on the students? Because ultimately you are learning what some board has decided for you, right? So that you don't fight, but yoga, which is essential for your holistic health, that you will fight because in your mind it is associated with a certain ideology or certain religion. So my question is, when there are so many people from our own society who are vehemently opposing this, how do you integrate this? How do you make that possible? State support is another thing, but how do we convince society to include this wholeheartedly?
See, first of all, this is a gradual process. It's a slow process. It cannot happen overnight. We cannot expect the whole society to change overnight because of many layers of many years of colonization. Okay, and then there have to be certain prominent big examples, successful examples of people who come out successfully from these institutions, and then they can be role models for society, because society looks at people in who can be role models. Okay, so as you were mentioning Sadhguru, his institution is one example that he can show by example that, okay, I am a big public figure and from my institution there are some products who are coming out successfully because they don't give any degrees for music or dance that they learn there. Okay. The other thing I want to say is that mass education is a very recent phenomena, and mass literacy should definitely be our goal. But if we talk about the deeper Guru Shishya paramparas that are meant for specific subjects, they are not meant for masses. Okay? So Kala Kshetra, for example, was not meant for masses, not for everybody, for specific people who wanted to learn for under a guru. Okay. Now, if we talk about elementary education for masses, we can do many things for introducing elements within the elementary education system, like Shahana ji was talking about arts. So we can introduce education through art. Like I'll give you an example of indigenous education system that was based on Dharampal ji's work. So when students were young, they used to learn by writing alphabets on the sand. They used to draw figures on the sand. They used natural substances like sand, clay, and bamboo, okay, to create their whatever they wanted to create. If we use similar techniques even now in our elementary education system, use clay, for example, to create idols, Saraswati idol, Ganesh ji idol, okay. So we can use simple techniques like these in our elementary education system, which are meant for masses, and that is very simple way to introduce IKS. So I think that there are many ways like this by which we can make it relevant and also appealing for the masses.
And Shefali, I just want to add that, when you talked about, I gave you that one example, but the reason I give you that example is I see that as a model for the other Gurukulas, because I feel that what is being developed there can easily be replicated in so many Gurukulas. And what we really need is many success stories. The people studying in those Gurukulas coming out and doing great things, coming with innovative solutions to problems, or they come into the public eye. That is when you will see a craze that everybody wants to join. This is just like that, the Saregama program, once it became a hit, everybody wants to learn music so that they can participate in that. So I was thinking of some innovative ways in which you can promote this traditional education. Like I was thinking of IKS games, maybe because I saw one when I went. IAS already हैं, कई सारे गुरुकुल के जो graduates हैं, they are IAS, but you don't know about them, right? There are few, they are not talking. They need to be highlighted, and that's what I'm trying to do. And the games, I saw the reaction to the IKS program that was in Chinmaya, which was called the National Youth Conference. So it was a competition where children came from different parts of India and made presentations, poster presentations and various other presentations on any aspect of IKS that interested them. And there were so many students who presented on Chanakya's Arthashastra, how it is relevant today. Somebody is talking about Pakashastra, how, the quality of a good cook is that he should have a knowledge of metallurgy, which is written in Pakashastra. And it's relevant today because, all this non-stick cookware and all those things we use, are they good for the food? All these things, they were deriving fun in relating the old knowledge with today's requirements. So that it was a competition. And the winner in one of the categories was somebody from the US, a student who has come to study Ayurveda in India, and she won the poster presentation. So I feel like a lot of things are happening below the surface, and we are thinking that, this is not going to happen. But suddenly one day, I think Gurukula education will explode. At least I am very optimistic.
Tathastu. To answer your question, actually, if tomorrow for IIT entrance exam, if the top 10 students are from Gurukulas, everybody will want to send their children to Gurukula. We are almost out of time. There are about 8 minutes. I would like to take questions from audience if there are any. I just have one request. Please identify yourself and ask the question. Do not make an observation because we just don't have the time for it. Yes, please. You will need to come in front, sir.
Is there a mic?
आपका नाम बताइए और प्रश्न पूछिए.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, my name is Rohan Alag, and my question is to all the panelists. Like, जो हम लोगों ने पूरा अभी तक discussion किया है, it is also based on the brain drain that happened. So, जैसे अब US में जितने US and specifically अभी जैसे Germany में the pattal they just patented it and they said कि ये अब हमारा है and it's all like environmental. How do we prevent that? Because in India we have been using it since way long back. आज भी हम लोग गुरुद्वारे में जाते हैं, उसी में हमें प्रसाद मिलता है. but they are if they patent it and now 100 years later they say Germans invented it. So how do we overcome that problem?
I think उसका आंसर भी यही है कि if I may answer, the Gurukula education system, if we are rooted in our civilization, then we will also not allow our knowledge to be stolen by the others. It's because we are not rooted in it and we don't know what we are capable of or what our ancestors did. So then we are watching this tamasha happening where, you know, they're trying to patent turmeric, they're patenting so many things. So this IKS, this implementation of Indian knowledge systems, modules, Gurukula education, traditional education, all this is going to stop all this, you know, it's going to make us take ownership of our knowledge and prevent it from being patented. That's why I feel that we need to bring back this traditional education. Baki, आप बताइए।
ये जो इन्होंने क्वेश्चन पूछा है ना, ये जो एक देव असुर संग्राम की बात करते हैं उसका एक टिपिकल एग्जाम्पल है। और एक एनेक्डोट है छोटा सा कि कहते हैं कि विष्णु ने एक बार एक भोजन के लिए बुलाया, भोज के लिए, तो देवताओं को भी बुला लिया और राक्षसों को भी बुला लिया, दोनों के अलग अलग कैबिन से जिसमें उनको भोजन मिलना था। तो सारी जो फेवरेट डिशेस थी वो सामने रखी हैं और जब वो टेबल पे खाना खाने बैठे तो उनके हाथ स्टिक के साथ सीधे बांध दिए कि वो बाजू मोड़ नहीं सकते। बोला आप खाओ। तो जो राक्षस थे उन्होंने बोला हमें पता था ये विष्णु चालाक है, कोई ना कोई चालाकी ज़रूर करेगा, लेकिन हम खा के जाएंगे। तो सामने मान लीजिए गुलाब जामुन है, उठाया, अब हाथ तो मुंह तक पहुंच नहीं रहा, तो यूं करके डालने की कोशिश की, कभी वो नाक पे गिर रहा था, कभी आंख पे गिर रहा था, लेकिन मुंह में नहीं जा रहा था। तो दे वर डिस्गस्टेड, तो खड़े हुए विष्णु को गालियां देते हुए बाहर जाने लगे। तो देखा जो देवताओं वाला कैबिन है उसके आगे से निकल रहे हैं, तो वहाँ बड़े मज़े की आवाज़ें आ रही थी। तो बोले इनके हाथ नहीं बांधे होंगे। तो वहाँ गए तो हाथ उनके भी बंधे हुए थे, लेकिन वो क्या कर रहे थे कि आमने सामने बैठ के ये वाला सामने वाले को खिला रहा है, वो उसे खिला रहा है। तो हमारी जो ट्रेडिशन है उसने कभी भी योग आसन को पेटेंट नहीं किया, आयुर्वेद को पेटेंट नहीं किया। ये वो राक्षसी आइडियोलॉजीज़ हैं जो सिर्फ अपने खाने के लिए बनाते हैं, इसलिए उन्होंने पेटेंट का रेजीम बनाया जो सिर्फ लूटने के लिए बना हुआ है। कई बार लोग मुझसे लड़ते भी हैं इस बात पे कि क्या यार किसी ने अपनी सारा जीवन लगा दिया, उसने निकाला और फिर वो अब उससे कमाई नहीं करेगा। तो हमें याद ये रखना है कि जब हम बड़े हो रहे हैं ना, आज जितने भी बड़े हुए हैं, हमारे समाज ने हमें पाल पोस के बड़ा किया है। माँ ने पहले दिन छोड़ दिया होता तो मर जाता, बाप ने पहले दिन नहीं पैदा किया होता तो मर जाता, पालन पोषण नहीं किया होता तो मर जाता। तो पूरे समाज का कलेक्टिव एफर्ट होता है जो हमें बड़ा करता है, हमारे ब्रेन को डेवलप करता है। तो ये पेटेंट रिजीम एक अलग डिस्कशन हो जाएगी, लेकिन आइडियली बेसिकली ये दो बिल्कुल ऑपोजिट आइडियोलॉजीज का क्लैश है। इसका सॉल्यूशन निकालना पड़ेगा, निकालने की जरूरत नहीं।
नीरज जी, वी हैव अ सॉल्यूशन। द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया प्रिवेंटेड द the patenting of turmeric, so that means we prevent them. We have systems ready so that, you know, if they patent it, we stop them from doing
Exactly. अपनी
Okay,
लाठी
that's it.
अपनी
That-
लाठी
that's it,
स्ट्रांग
that-
होनी चाहिए, जिसकी लाठी उसकी भैंस।
That is a different discussion. Let's come to it on some other time. Any other questions, please?
Hello, panelists. My name is Divyansh. My question for you guys is, we've seen a new technology come up, which is AI. And it is inevitable, if you've seen chat GPT and things like that, that it will inevitably now come to education. And when something like this comes, it becomes competitive advantage for those who know it versus those who don't know it, right? For example, scientific papers are written in English, so you need to know English if you want to read those papers and that kind of thing. So what is you guys' view about how this will turn out, whether India will need indigenously develop AI, whether we'll need certain kind of protection for models, because we are already seeing chat GPT having a left-wing bias and this sort of a thing. So what's your view on it?
See, as far as AI is concerned, what has been happening for last maybe 7 or 8 decades is that we've been missing the bus. अभी तक we've been mimicking the West, कि जो कर रहे हैं हम उसको mimic कर रहे थे. It is not only in AI, it is in genetics also, it is in biotechnology also. We've lagged. So unless and until we also start putting huge amount of resources in research and development, plus we have to think out of the box so that the bus that we have missed, that is gone. Sometimes what happens is the other team has been given such a head start that we are not able to cover that up. So we'll have to come up with our own what should we call, cutting edge technologies. Unless and until we do that, we can. Now the discussion was going. That is not to say that we have to go into that some utopian past and we have to relive that. We have to accommodate what is presently happening along with what we've been talking so far. I guess Divyansh, that was your question.
No, but I don't think Chat GPT is going to replace the work of scientists and innovators and all that. I mean, so in that sense, I mean, I see it more as okay, collecting information, giving you data and things like that. But in the real work of knowledge generation, I feel that for that to be disrupted, I'm not seeing that happening very soon. So I'm seeing ChatGPT more as helping people to do their homework and write some essays and things like that. But in terms of real knowledge, I feel that it's not going to disrupt that. I'm not too alarmed by that aspect.
Next question, please. I can only take one more question. This and one more question.
On one side here, we are talking about getting back.
Ma'am,
to
can
the-
you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Jayanti. I'm live in Gurgaon. I'm a teacher too, a parent as well as a teacher. On one side here, we are talking about going to the ancient system of Gurukulam and integrating it, which is a wonderful idea. But what practically we are seeing is with the advancement of technology and this online schooling, every parent, every teacher here would definitely agree that
Cannot hear you.
children are so much diverted by use of the online technologies, whether you call it mobile phone or iPad or iPod or whatever it is. And even with the existing little bit of academics, which the standard of which has been brought down compared to pre-COVID to today. And even for making them concentrate on that, if you are a teacher or a parent sitting with a child, you give them a few seconds break.
Ma'am, what's your question?
Immediately they are on the YouTube or whatever. So how is that? So that has become the trend today for the children. So it is all the more difficult to bring them back even to the basic academics and to bring them to a standard that is expected of their age. So then how do we handle this and then uplift them to this Gurukula system?
Anybody would like to take
I think
this?
parenting, there has to be proper parenting. So if you are saying that children are addicted to this and that, then the parenting has not been right. So I mean, the answer is parenting number one, and then we'll talk about schooling. So if you have not built the...
No, it is, I'm not talking about the parenting. I'm talking about the impact of the usage of or misuse of, use or misuse or abuse of the technology available to them. How much... almost
Yeah, so-
every teacher and every parent faces this problem.
So first
Yeah,
of
but
all,
that is a universal problem. That is not specific to students in the Gurukula. In fact, students in a Gurukula, residential Gurukula, are actually a little bit more immune to it because it's a residential school and screen time can be very rigidly controlled. So while I understand your concern,
I'm not saying that Gurukula is wrong. I'm saying that how to divert the children from that attitude of towards practically. I'm just wanting to know the practical problem that we are all facing.
that is a universal problem, ma'am, and every day it's a Kurukshetra for all of us parents. I also have 3 teenagers. I also face it every day. So there is no easy solution to that. Next question, please.
हाय मेरा नाम गौरव तिवारी है, मैं सूत्रधार का
question.
फाउंडर हूँ. सो आई हैव बीन रनिंग दिस स्टार्टअप फॉर लास्ट 3 years. तो और हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव ये है कि हमारी जो पुरानी एंशियंट नॉलेज सिस्टम है और जो हमारा स्टोरीज़ हैं, बेसिकली पहले श्रुति स्मृति, राइट, लोग कहानियाँ सुनाते थे और उसके थ्रू नॉलेज ट्रांसफ़र करते थे. सो वो हम लोग 3 साल से एफर्ट कर रहे हैं, एंड वी आर डिज़ाइनिंग एक्टिविटीज़ लाइक पजल्स, बोर्ड गेम्स एट्सेट्रा विच आर रूटेड इन इंडियन कल्चर. Because our thought process is that if you want people to divert to our knowledge system, you have to catch them young and you have to catch them where they are, right? So if they are playing jigsaw puzzles,
What's the question?
so the question is that like me, there would be many other people who are making this effort. How to collaborate and how to bring these efforts together so that we can make a collective attempt towards making this dream of ours a reality.
Excellent question, sir. Anybody would like to take this? How do you collaborate? There are different people who are doing different things in this field. Some people are designing games, whatever, but they all have the same thought behind it. So how do you collaborate to make this a greater ecosystem? Am I right? That's your question? Yeah.
so yeah, you have to create a network of institutions For example, there's this IKS network that has been created now by the AICTE. They have identified institutions working on IKS only. So they have created a list of institutions, and they are creating more networks where they can come and collaborate and work together. Okay, so we need such networks. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
If you can please, I have a very
I'm
quick
sorry,
question.
I'm sorry, the time was up. You can always meet the speakers after that, and I think she's already waiting for the next session. Very sorry about this. Thank you so much for a very enlightening discussions. Thank you.